I think the vulnerability encourages empathy. It's very difficult to empathize with victims, with the survivors. When I wrote Some Boys was inspired by a real case where a young girl was assaulted by 4 members of her class's football team. Again, they were friends. They went through school together, so she's known them all her life. And yet, because she was drinking and to the point of unconsciousness, everyone blamed her for what happened. They made several decisions here that were wrong. Okay, so at what point do we stop saying it's her fault and say it's their fault? It's so much easier for society as a whole to empathize with 4 football players who lost their scholarships, right? Than it is for a young girl who got herself so drunk that she couldn't see straight. That's the problem, that we're empathizing with the wrong people. I would say the biggest cause of confusion is that when people hear the word rape or they hear the word rapist, they immediately imagine this sort of like monstrous person with a stocking mask over his head. But statistics will show that most rapes are caused by people the victims know. Sometimes the advice that we give young women is important because you don't know where the wolf is hiding in those sheep's clothing. But they don't understand the damage this is doing long term. We should be teaching people how not to rape instead of how to avoid being raped. So that's the kind of mentality that I was trying to address, right? And then several years later, when I wrote Someone I Used to Know, there was almost that same level of blame happening. It starts with challenging both media and challenging, our friends, the people that we are, hanging out with most often, by constantly ignoring the off-color humor, right? The inappropriate behavior, the uncomfortable and awkward behavior that friends may exhibit. When men just shrug all this off, they're telling their other friends that it's perfectly okay how you treat women. Media plays a big role in this with the language they're using. Ever since Brock Turner, his name became known, if you even do a Google search, right, if you go back and you look at the headlines, every media outlet in the country would report this as Stanford swimmer Brock Turner accused of sexual assault, or Stanford swimmer. It was always Stanford swimmer, as if somehow by virtue of him getting into and attending Stanford, he somehow could not be guilty of this crime. And one of the other things that I see often is non-consensual sex. So I immediately put a red X through that. And I explained to the people who wrote that headline, there is literally no such thing as non-consensual sex. By very definition, it's rape. Another term that you'll see often, again with Prince Andrew's involvement with the Jeffrey Epstein situation, okay? People will constantly report that story as sex with underage women. Again, does not exist. The reason we have an age of consent is precisely for this reason. 16, a 15, a 13-year-old girl is by definition a child. Sex with someone who is a child is rape. So we constantly need to hammer back at media for creating these false narratives, okay? Because there's no such thing as sex with underage women. They are girls, it is therefore rape. Let's put it this way. So when you look at a political figure who is accused of sexual assault, nothing ever happens to him. It usually takes 10, 20, 30 women to come forward before anyone starts to believe that this man may be guilty of the crimes that he is accused of. For example, Harvey Weinstein. So if a man is assaulted in that way, he is even less likely to report this crime because no one is going to believe this. And on top of that, the self-blame, it's even compounded further for men because now there's this assault on his very masculinity, that if he allowed himself to get raped, then clearly he's not really a man. Sexual assault has many different components to it. It could involve date rape drugs, as what happened with the Brock Turner example, or even Steubenville, where the girl was unconscious. So when there's a loss of consciousness involved, it doesn't matter how strong you are. Your choice was still taken away from you. You were unable to grant consent. That, by very definition, is rape. So if we can remove the stigma behind this, that it's only a girl's problem, I think we'll start to see, a tremendous turnaround in our society. So these are the problems that as a society we have to address, because it's just wrong-headed thinking, and we will continue to have more and more victims. And once we get everyone to understand that this is a societal problem and not just a male-female problem, then it will probably be fixed. There's a big difference when we say he raped her versus she was raped. Mm-hmm. Which one's the subject of the sentence? That's what we need to change.